The more you try to keep me down and keep my head above the water, you can never hold me down. The more you try to block me out, that's where I kick the wall down. You can never hold me back. The more you try to put me out, the more I'll be blazing, it's too hot. The more you try to put me in the dirt, increase my work, the expert. You see the hunger in the eyes of a survivor. Swallowed my pride, washed down with some...
Hi everybody, this is Casey from Pinecase. Tonight, it is a Tuesday night. We are just chilling. I have a good friend of mine that's going to come and hang out with me. We're going to have a quick chat about music and mental health. His name is Tim Steinruck. He's just one hell of a guy. And if I go off on all the things that he has done for not only the music industry, but the mental health industry, we would be here absolutely all night, which probably wouldn't be that big of a deal. But yes, everyone, if you could please give a warm welcome to my friend Tim. Tim, how the heck are you?
I'm amazing, and I'm so happy to be here with you again today. And I didn't realize actually until you mentioned that this is, I know that last month was Mental Health Awareness Month, but this is Men's Mental Health Awareness Month this month in June. And I mean, it's such an important issue, you know. It's such an important thing for us to deal with. I deal with it a lot in my coaching business.
Right.
I mean, most of the sources of addiction and relationship breakdown, most of those come from a mental health source. And so having a healthy mental health outlook and a way to manage your mental health affects not only our health, like our physical health, but it also affects everybody around us that we're in contact with. And I just see how it's the source of all of the major challenges that people have in their life.
Yeah, it's not the truth.
And so I just want to acknowledge you for first of all for taking this on, you know, what you're doing with Pinecase. I just want to acknowledge you and just say how much I appreciate you for that. And so it's an honor to be here tonight.
Oh, thank you so much. It's been really interesting when I started this company. It's our year anniversary, and I started it in Men's Mental Health Month intentionally because I thought that every year I would know, like that would be our big thing, and we would round up and round down with Men's Mental Health Month. But man, did I get a kick in the teeth over the weekend. And not it necessarily like it wasn't personal, but it was a bit heartbreaking. So I actually got to sit in. I was a guest on somebody else's podcast, Seeing Red podcast. Totally wicked dudes. They're doing it properly, and honestly, it was so awesome to meet them and be a part of what they were doing. But with that being said, they had said, "Oh, in case you guys are doing Men's Mental Health Month," and I was like, it's actually a national thing. And it dawned on me, like, not that it was anyone's ignorance. It's just lack of awareness. But it like broke my heart into a million pieces that people don't realize that it's even happening.
Mm-hmm.
That it's a Canadian, it's a national initiative. And unfortunately, it maybe doesn't get as much recognition as some of the other big initiatives this month, because there's some big ones.
Yes, of course.
Right?
Of course.
And not that I would ever want to take the spotlight from any of them, because they work very hard to get the word out there. But it made I was like, how do I yell louder? Like, right? Like, how do I yell louder? Do we need a flag? Is that what needs to happen? Like, what's happening here? Like, because you don't want to match that with anything negative. But I was just like, oh, okay. Because maybe being I don't know. Maybe not being kind of in everybody's face isn't the way to do it, right? Because I'm like, we want to do this tastefully. Like, we want to make sure that, we're not like kind of ramming it down everybody's throat. We want to do it in such a way that it's like kind of on the down low, that people can, find the knowledge where they need it. But I just, yeah, I'm sorry to like verbal diarrhea everywhere, but I'm just like, why isn't TD talking about it? Why isn't the library talking about it? Why isn't, it part of literacy or illiteracy? Can't talk week.
Can't talk
Why
week.
isn't it, like, why isn't it part of, why are these big businesses not pushing it to the forefront like they do
Yeah.
some of the other ones?
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's always something going on. There's always some kind of a
Mm.
special interest or some kind of an awareness campaign. I mean, it's also Pride Month, right? So that's also front and center, right? And so making sure that everybody's heard. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff to listen to. There's no doubt about it. But
Yeah, that's
you
true.
know, and I'm not trying to take away anything from any other special interests or awarenesses, but I personally believe there is nothing more important to take care of in our life than our physical and our mental health.
Well, that's kind of what I'm getting at. Like, I absolutely, okay, I'm just, the elephant in the room is going to be pride, I guess, because that's the one that I've been dealing with, and I don't want to talk ill about it. I mean, I painted the first rainbow crosswalk in my hometown. Everybody knows that it's near and dear to my heart. That's never been a secret. And I think they've done such a wonderful job about getting the word out there. There was a lot of people that backed it for all the right reasons, and there was a lot of people that didn't back it for all the wrong reasons, and equally created the same amount of stir and publicity, which was great.
Mhm.
But what I seem to be kind of met with is like the same thing that is kind of the problem to begin with, which is men are just kind of told to like suck it up and deal with it. And like not only now, not only is it maybe not front and center, but you also have to share your month with another month. Like I want, like, was that month decided because it's Father's Day month? Because it just seemed like, why would they like, why would they put such two big, I mean, these are hallmark, these are important topics with hallmark initiatives,
Sure.
unfortunately, like a
Sure.
hallmark foundation design embellishments, whatever, which is unfortunate, but that's just the reality of it, right?
Yeah.
But I'm just like, why, like, even just putting it in June with Pride being so massive, it already seems like it's like, well, we'll just toss it into June because it's Father's Day and it's not a big deal and they won't mind because it's men and they never really, we don't really acknowledge it anyways.
I mean, I'll be honest with you. I can multitask. It doesn't really,
Okay.
it doesn't really bother me that much, and I don't really feel like it overshadows.
Mm,
There are these big movements that happen in these big month. These things that are celebrated every year that are a big deal. Obviously, Pride's gotten bigger and bigger and bigger every year,
massive, yeah, which is
but
great.
which is awesome, and I have so many friends who, it's what they look forward to every year,
Absolutely.
and it gives them the energy and the foundation,
Hmm.
to go, I'm seen, I'm
Yeah.
seen, and I
Yeah.
want to be seen. And oftentimes with mental health is something that is quieter. It's always bubbling under the surface. Do you know
Mm.
what I mean? And it's the same thing in the way that mental health shows up, or poor mental health, or challenging mental health shows up for people. It's under the surface. On top, they're happy, and they're dancing, and it's grooving, and everything. Life is great, but underneath there's this storm that's going on, right? It's always there. And that's
Mm.
really how mental health is. And it gets buried down. So as far as it being front and center to be talked about, I think it's a daily thing. I think it's a,
Right.
a yearly thing. I think it's an always thing, you
Mhm.
know. I mean, the things that count for me right now let's talk men's mental health. I mean, I'm not going to go into maybe let's just be really specific about that because that's what we're talking about.
Absolutely, yeah.
Is that yes, men have been told to suck it up for a long time, and that culture still exists. However, that being said, I meet with a lot of very vulnerable men,
Right.
okay? And men who are willing to talk openly because it's really a matter of survival for them, right? If they don't talk about it, it's going to show up in a few more drinks. It's going to show up in some way to get away from reality, to get high or whatever. It's going to show up in bad habits. You know what I mean? And addictions to different things, including porn, all sorts of different things. Anything that we can do to sort of get away from having to deal, like you say, with the elephant in the room, we
Yeah.
will do. Okay.
Right.
And so I think it's something that just needs to be looked at on a daily basis. And I'm a firm believer. I mean, I know you follow some of the things that I do, but I'm a
Yeah.
firm believer in having daily disciplines. The daily disciplines are the only way to deal with the daily challenges. Okay.
Yeah.
And so, as far as mental health goes, the best thing that you could ever do for yourself first thing in the morning, which is when you wake up and everything kind of comes swamping in, you probably pick up your phone, you pick up some social media, you get some messages, you get some emails, and suddenly the pressure of the day is on you.
Right.
Before you do that, raise your body's energy.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Like I do like a 7-minute high interval training workout. 7
Right.
minutes, that's it. But when I do that, I immediately release oxytocin, adrenaline, serotonin, all of these amazing chemicals that are here in my pharmacy, in my brain. I think I might have said this the last time we got together.
Yeah, and for those of you who don't know what he's talking about all the chemicals that are manufactured and then you take and use or abuse. I mean, all of those things are either like cocaine or
Sure.
heroin, basically.
Yeah.
And
You
with
can get
all of
them all. You can get them all from outside sources too. But you
yeah,
actually have a pharmacy in your brain.
yeah, that's right.
And the only way to open the doors to that pharmacy is to raise your heart rate and
Mhm.
raise the blood flowing through your body for at least 7 to 10 minutes. When you do that, all those natural antidepressants
Oh
and
yeah.
energy life-giving things are released into your system and you immediately feel better. So I'm doing a lot of things, and I sometimes I get overwhelmed when I go to bed at night, and then it hits me first thing in the morning too. All of the things that need to be done, all of the things that I haven't done, all of the things that I'm maybe not doing so well, or I wished I was doing better at, or the things that are coming up, or whatever. They all come washing in like a wave on me, right?
Yeah.
The first thing I do before I turn on my phone is I go and I do that workout. I have some other things that I do. There's some meditation, some breathing and stuff like that, right? But that workout, that first 7 minutes that I do, I immediately am grounded and I've built a strong foundation to my day.
And I think people forget like how important that is. Like people are like, well, I start my day with coffee. The same way that you start your day with the ritual of making coffee is the same, like you're talking about like the same tenacity, starting your day with raising like your core temperature and raising, sorry, excuse me, raising your core temperature, raising your, getting like the juices flowing, releases all of those hormones. And ultimately all of that is also, mirroring the testosterone that's also being produced and released, right? So I think like when we talk about men's mental health specifically, like you need that. You need that to fundamentally be a man. And I'm not going to sit here and like, pull apart all like the particulars about, hormone therapy and stuff like that. But just on the day to day, there's a ton of benefits to that. And so when you're starting your day in such a way, not only is it like physically and mentally important, but it's also very spiritually important as well, right? Because I mean, who doesn't want to start their day feeling like that, especially that a gender, like you guys thrive. I can't speak for you. I mean, I do speak for you guys all the time, but I can't speak for you. When I say like, I would imagine that if for testosterone driven mammals, like that's super, super important. If you're starting your day like in a slump and, everything is kind of like, sore and gloom and all of this stuff, it would be
Sure.
it's not setting yourself up for success at all.
Well, it's like a handshake with yourself. Do you know what I'm saying? So like, when you get a handshake from somebody, it's this wet, limpy thing.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not a nice firm handshake like that.
Oh, it's so weird, man. Yeah.
Right. So this handshake with yourself happens every morning. It happens every day. And this is men, and I'm talking men and women when I'm talking about this discipline of raising your energy, right? It starts a strong foundation to your day. You have this outside body. So you've got Tim that you see here, but there's another Tim inside. And I have to have a relationship with that Tim. And so I need to start a handshake and a relationship first thing in the morning with that Tim, so the outside Tim can be strong all day. Do you know what I mean? And maybe if I'm having a really hard day, I'll do that same routine that I did in the morning. I'll do it later on in the day too, if I have to, if it's been a stressful day.
Yeah, it's smart. I mean, we put so much emphasis on so many other things, man. Like, there's so many. I mean, it goes hand in hand with diet. Like people are like, well, I go to the gym all the time. But then they like kind of fall short on maybe their nutrition. And honestly, I don't think that everyone needs to like step up tomorrow and be like an absolute pro on any of these tips or tricks. Obviously, it begins somewhere. But when you're eating, when you're focused on what you're eating as well, like the chemicals. Well, first of all, just the vitamins and minerals that you're intaking have a profound effect on your body, right? Yes. And then that in turn also releases the same serotonin and dopamine and everything like that. And so,
yes, serotonin, dopamine, oxytocin, and the adrenaline. Adrenaline is an amazing thing. It's what they shove into you when they want to bring you back to life. So if you can get a shot of that first thing in the morning, that's pretty awesome. You know what I mean?
Totally. And it's crazy because people look for it in other ways, right? Like people are jumping off bridges or skydiving or doing all these driving too fast or doing all these crazy things. And it's like you can do that in a more like healthy collective way and still get the same result, right?
Sure. And the thing is with exercise is everybody thinks, oh man, I got to go to the gym for like, an hour or two. I got to get in my car. I got to put on my stuff. I got to go there. I got to get set up, put on my headphones, do my thing. Yeah, do that a few times a week. I agree. I think that's a really good thing. But do this thing for yourself. And it's like I say, it's opening the door to your own personal pharmacy. Now, what I did want to say, though, too, is for men, and this is, again, because I've been doing this discipline for just over 4 years now.
Okay.
Every day. I do not miss a day. I just hit day 1600.
I was just going to say, what to hear you on, because last time when you had a number, that just about blew my hair back. I was like, holy shit.
Yeah, I had, so 2 weeks ago when I was in Nashville, I had 1600 days.
Wow, congratulations.
So, but what I've added in now, and I think this is really important for men, is to work with some weights. Okay? So, lifting for men, because we are very physically, everything is around being physical for us. Since men were on the planet and we were cavemen and whatever, the men were always the hunters and the gatherers, and the women were the ones at home with the kids. I'm not saying it's that way anymore. However, we have more physicality that we need maintenance for, right? We need to maintain our physicality. And I found that when I do some weightlifting, okay,
Mhm.
and I keep it pretty simple. I do lots of reps, not heavy weights, 2 25-pound dumbbells, and I
Yeah.
do a number of different things with it for
Mhm.
probably about 20 minutes. And I'll even watch something or maybe listen to a podcast or something while I'm doing it, right? So I'm taking in information at the same time. I'm
Beautiful.
not just lifting. But
Mhm.
I find that after I do that, not only do I feel strong, but I feel more manly.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
And so
listen, you're talking to somebody who, like, I'm in a relationship where we thrive in our gender roles, and I'm not ashamed of that. I Each to their own, but like we thrive in that. I'm not trying to like be out there doing what he does, and he's certainly not trying to be in here doing what I do. And we respect each other enough. He was me over the weekend, and the kids are still alive. The house didn't burn down, and it was all good. Like, everyone survived. But
yeah.
I think I can speak for all the kids when I said like they were pretty happy when I came when I walked through the door. And equally, like I was happy to like take back my position. I'm like, that's mine. And so I mean, everyone has their own standard to life, but I do not mind those gender roles, and I think that because we physically represent those roles, um, or at least we do in my house, that it fits and it makes sense to us.
Mm.
I mean, other people have different situations, and that's all good. But yeah, I definitely think like just speaking from what I experienced, like if he's out there chopping wood, then maybe like, upholding his physique might be a lot more important than maybe me, who's, my primary role is like, well, right now it's rearing children, but yeah, I don't necessarily need to be super like Wonder Woman for that, right? Like
Mhm.
bag of potatoes is only so heavy.
Well, I mean, there's like I say, with exercise, it can be taken in bite-sized chunks.
Right.
People put a lot of emphasis on, oh no, man, I gotta go and I gotta do my workout for like an hour and a half, 2 hours, and I go to the gym and I gotta come back, and next thing you know, it's like a 3 hour adventure. And so
Mhm.
yeah, you can only do that 2 or 3 times a week,
Right.
at the most, right? And to really to see results and really to manage your time properly. But if you can put aside a few minutes every morning before you jump into the river of life, and this is the river of life right
Yeah.
here.
Yes, it is.
Right? Before you jump into the river of life, take good care of yourself,
Yeah.
open the doors to your pharmacy, and then go make your coffee, sit down, and and jump into the river. That's great. But I think that's this the key to managing this
Yeah, it's another good topic.
is a key to managing your mental health.
Right.
I
Right.
haven't been able to do it yet, but turning the phone off an hour before I go to sleep
Oh man,
and
wonders of
putting
it.
and putting it in another room,
Yeah.
I'm working towards that. And I will get there. I
Yeah,
will
you
get
will. I don't doubt that for a second. Honestly, we've implemented a few things like without really noticing. But I would say like the most valuable time that happens in my household, especially, is like the no phone time, right? And now that like it's funny because when you do it with intent, right, it's a little uncomfortable, and then you kind of get through that. But now we got like Uno champions in the house. We got like highest record of like dice right now in the household. We got like who can make the best mocktail going on the fridge front of the fridge. We got people fighting over like who's gonna make dessert for Sunday dinner. Like it was crazy what happened when we were like, okay, we're just gonna kind of maybe ditched the phones for a while. And now, you know, my 10-year-old, it was his suggestion. He was like, instead of gaming, because we used to game for an hour, that was like mine and his thing.
Right.
He was like, I would rather just cook with you.
That is so cool.
Like, yeah, right. And he's like, yeah, I think it's what did he say? He said, I can't remember the word that he used, but basically he just said like, he enjoys it more and he gets more out of it. And I mean, I kind of bribed him a little bit. So when we gamed, it was like capped at an hour, right? But when we're cooking, it can go on as long.
Well, and he gets to spend time with you, and it's exclusive time with you.
Yeah.
I mean, I used to love that too as a kid. I grew up on a farm, and my dad really wanted me to be that manly man who was welding and and fixing equipment because farm equipment always broke, and and working with wood and but I was the musician guy, right? Like I just always just loved being artistic and musical, and that stuff didn't really come to me naturally. So when my dad was just frustrated and went, get out of here, right? And I was like 11, 10 or 11 or something like that. I was happy because I went with my mom and I learned to cook.
Yeah, that's so good.
And I enjoyed that,
Yeah, and it's so funny because I don't even feel like that's a gender role. Like, I mean, if you look at it from like a commercial standpoint, like it's funny because women, historically have been in the kitchen, but men run that industry, period.
True enough.
Like to be a female chef is like, I mean, even now people don't really care. Like, no offense to any of the ladies.
Oh, I don't know about that. I know a lot of famous female chefs.
I'm talking pretty shitty right now, but like I just mean like in the same way that the music industry is run by dudes. Like, I mean, obviously there's some wicked awesome women out there, but it's still the big boys club, or at least from what I experienced, which is fine. I don't.
Yeah, I have to disagree with you there too, because
really?
maybe it just might seem that way, but honestly, I'm in the music industry now. I'm working with equally as many women in leadership roles there.
Yeah, actually, hold on. Sorry, I should rephrase that because it's like I obviously like all the things I do is all women. Like it's funny because we're in men's mental health, but I literally like Decimate's a crew of women. Pinecase is a crew of women. Like I don't mean it in that mind. I mean like the mindset. Like we haven't changed the structure that came with it. Like so, how do I explain this? Like women are emotionally driven creatures, but the way that those two businesses are structured are still very in like the men's minds, which I think needs to be that way. Like you can't run. I don't know if you can really run any industry like emotion first. And so I guess maybe like when I speak like it's a male predominant industry, I kind of mean like the mindset that comes with that industry.
I think I have to disagree with you. I think that's changing. And I think it's also changing politically because we always used to think that and we had to have a man in government to have strong government. I disagree. I mean, you even look back to women like Margaret Thatcher or anything like that. I'm working a little bit with the Colombian government right now, and they've got a female in there. The Mexican government's got a female in there. So things are changing. As women and men have evolved. There's a lot more vulnerable men than there ever was, and men who are willing to speak openly about the way they feel about things, and maybe even get emotional about it.
Yeah.
And there's a lot more women who are willing to step up, who are like, "This is how it's going to be." Do you know what I mean? And are firm and have more of that masculine edge to the way that they do things. So. Honestly, I have to say, Kalisha, I think there's been an evolution.
Thank goodness.
And men and women have met, and there's more of a meshing going on. Are there still those holdouts who want those separate roles?
Right.
Yes, absolutely. And does that work well for family, like with you? Will you play that You know, you're the mom, and the mom is the job, and taking
Mm.
care of the house is the job. It's your job, right? And
Yeah,
the man
totally.
goes out, makes the money. That has value, especially when there's kids around. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Because at least somebody's always home.
Yeah,
You know,
totally.
in my family, you know, both my wife and I both work, and
Mhm.
I mean, we've only got, you know, we've got Maya, we got one, you know, got one child, so it's a little bit different. She's got lots of friends, and so there's been more of an almost she's been raised as an adult, I guess, is how I could put it.
Okay. Yeah, yeah,
Do you know
yeah.
what
But
I mean?
you, I mean, you kinda took that role on though, like
I did. I was a stay-at-home dad. Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
took
yeah.
I
Yeah.
took 5 years off, and I
Mhm.
was a stay-at-home dad, and I loved every minute. Don't get me wrong. I
Yeah,
loved every minute of it, and I think it made my relationship with her very strong.
that's amazing.
Um, but yes, there that nurturing needs to be there, you know,
Mhm.
for sure.
Right.
But, yeah, getting to men and again, and men's mental health and what I've experienced over the last well, since I started, you know, really bringing this, coaching into my life, right?
Mhm.
Being coached by people, you know, certifying as a coach myself, and then, you know, really serving as a coach. What I've found that's been very powerful and transformative for men, especially around mental health, has been men's groups,
Right. Yeah,
right?
okay.
So when men actually get together
Yeah.
and talk about their feelings,
Yes, that's
you know
awesome.
what I mean?
Yeah.
Like where they can have a space to talk with each other and
Mhm.
be brutally honest
Yeah.
and bring up brutally honest men stuff. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? And so that brotherhood, that the power of brotherhood is an incredible place to work through mental issues and emotional issues that men are going through. I want to share um, one of the things that I use in some of these groups. And it's something I learned from being in a group. It's probably about 15 years ago. And it's about having a very formal conversation.
Mhm.
So, you know, you sit across from each other and you give each other your full attention. Okay. You decide on what the question is going to be. Oftentimes is um, tell like I would use a question like, especially if people are having a problem at home or having a problem connecting with their family. I'd use a question like, tell me about you and family.
Okay.
And so you give each other full attention, sit right across from each other, two chairs right across from each other on the floor, whatever, doesn't
Mhm.
matter. But eye contact, full eye contact. So I ask the question, or the other person asks me, it doesn't matter. We go back and forth, but we use the same question for the entire conversation.
Oh, interesting.
So tell me about you and family. And then what you do is you take it in, you take the question and you really let it land, like you really internalize it, and then you speak. So let's just we can practice this just a couple times back and forth.
Yeah.
Okay. So ask me the question.
Tell me about you and family.
Yeah, but ask it in a way is tell me about you and family. So just ask it again.
Tell me about you and family.
So I take it in. I find taking a breath is good. And then the first thing that pops into my mind is family is the most valuable asset that I have in my life. So when you hear that back, there's only three things that you can say to me in this structured questioning that I'm talking about. And it is thank you, which means yes, I understand what you're saying. Or it is if you didn't understand what I was saying, you'd say it again. Or if I went on and on and on, well, my family's this, and then they begin to, and then, and we went down to the store and we did that. And then when I get to the end of it, you just go, okay, summarize that. And you try to get it down into really short form, direct, communicative answers. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Do you understand the process?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to ask you the question now with those rules in place. Tell me about you and family.
Mm. Uh, Connection is important.
Thank you. And you notice how I waited for a moment because it looked like you were going to say something else,
Yeah.
but then you went, no, that's it. Right. So that watching of each other and being really giving full attention to each other. So ask me again now.
Tell me about you and family.
I need to continue to be a better father all the time.
Thank you.
Tell me about you and family.
Mm. Communication is fundamental with me and family.
Thank you. So I'm going to change up the question. I'm just going to do it a couple more times, okay? Do we have time?
Oh, please.
Okay, all right. Tell me about you and mental health.
I want to put it in a box.
Thank you.
Tell me about you and mental health.
Sometimes I struggle.
Thank you.
So that form of communication is called a dyad. Okay.
Mhm.
So if I was to do that, and when I do that with a client, I usually set a timer for 40 minutes. That's kind of the minimum amount of time that I'll put in. I have done dyads that have gone on for over 2 hours.
Oh.
Now, the reason that that happens, and the reason that this is such an effective form of communication, even with couples, like, tell me what you love about me. Tell me how I, tell me how I could be a better father. Tell me how I could be a better husband. You know,
Mhm.
or you get into hard questions like, tell me what you don't like about me.
Right.
You know what I mean? So in relation, when I do relationship coaching, oftentimes I'll, if I'm working with two people, I'll get them down and get them speaking like that. So what happens is that after a while, you run out of content
Right.
that is mind generated content or emotionally based content. And you start digging deeper. You peel back layers of the onion. And oftentimes you'll get, and actually almost every time, if you do it long enough, you get to the core of the issue. So when
Mm.
we're dealing with mental health, one of the biggest things about mental health, and you know this because of the work that you've done, is people just want to be heard. So if you can give them a key, which is a question is always a key,
Yeah.
you can give them the key that unlocks the door, and you are there giving them full attention, amazing miracles start to happen, you know,
Yeah.
using that same question over and over. And this is a very ancient practice, actually. So it's called a dyad, and you do it like that. So the rules are full attention.
Yes.
So I got to give my full attention to you. You got to give me your full attention to me.
Mm.
There's only 3 answers. Thank you. Say it again if I don't understand what you're saying, or summarize that if you went on a monologue for a while, right?
Yeah.
And then really setting a time limit to it. But even if you did it for 10 minutes, like I use it with my daughter.
Right.
I use it with kids. It works great.
I love how simple it is. There's not a whole lot to unpack there, but it's very effective. Like even after I answered the questions, I immediately wanted to think harder.
Mhm.
Like I'm like, okay, that's what I offered up, but there must be more. And then because that's followed up with being asked again, not only is it very complimentary, right? Because you're like, oh, they care, right? In a very genuine way. But then you also get the gratification of then being able to answer again. Like it's because, you know, a lot of times when you get cut off or the conversation ends and maybe things were left unsaid, it can cause even more problems than even maybe what you started with, right?
Yes.
Um, so yeah, that's one. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Oh, no problem. It's such a simple process,
Mhm.
but it needs to be done in a formal way. Because
Right.
if you sit down and you don't take those formalities of giving full attention and only those 3 answers,
Mhm.
if you don't, it'll just turn into a regular conversation. And so when I'm leading groups or something like that, it's always I'm walking around and I'm going, hang on, go back to the formal rules on this. If you want this to be effective, if you're going to invest the time into it, let's make sure you're actually getting some results from
Hmm.
it. It's a great way to deal with mental health because you're getting stuff out. Again, like I said, most people, the way that you can help them is just by listening,
Mhm.
just by being there and going, I understand. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, it's 90% of the job. Um,
Yeah.
the even I mean, I can speak a lot more on experience with the certification that I have. I was actually just going back through my workbook after the weekend, and I realized that it's really just a whole bunch of structured ways of listening,
Yeah.
right? Like, 'cause, I mean, each module has a specific, but basically it's just a different way of listening to
Yes.
whoever you're applying it to. So, yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful. I'd like to talk to you more about that certification that you have.
Yeah.
Yeah, what
Yeah.
just quickly tell me about that.
So I have my AHS community support worker certificate, and it's not obviously it's very like entry level. Um, it was it kind of a traditional 1 year course. It wasn't a huge deal. I did it at home. However, it does use the Alberta Health Standard, like services standard.
Okay.
Um, it's their program. And so it is exactly what you would be getting. You'd be getting the same structure from like a crisis nurse or a certified crisis line. Basically, it would be like the next level up from like any of like the volunteer services. So it's really interesting because you can. But I mean, as soon as I got it, it was like immediately just started being applicable to everything around me. You know,
Mm.
my in my personal life. Um, I'm sure it's probably the reason why we play Uno over video games, right? Like, and basically, it's just a great tool for life. The big part of it was to be reminded that when you're dealing with outreach, that you need to obviously protect yourself, and ethics were a massive chunk of it, and then also making sure that that like how to properly set boundaries and things like that. But the way that it was set up is not unlike uh, any other kind of community support worker certificate and or program. So yeah, it wasn't I to be honest, I didn't really go into it with super high expectations, but I definitely would be looking for some time to be able to like keep moving up the levels of that for sure.
Right. So let me ask you, what was after you finished the course, what were you more aware of?
That's an interesting one. So the one thing that kind of stood out to me was the structure of like dealing with somebody in crisis. Like the follow up is far more important than the original conversation.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think before I just wanted to make sure I was having all the conversations and like we got to save everybody. And once I realized that it was um, the follow up was most important, and I looking back, I'm like I can see why, but I think that was probably like the most easy and ignorant change that kind of happened.
Right.
And then outside of that, it's just making sure. Kind of like aces in their places. So obviously we're not superheroes, and it was extremely important that we knew kind of what our strengths were. We spent a lot of time in like self evaluation, and then with even the help of our instructor to kind of place like where we would kind of fit most appropriately, and then knowing the resources to guide people to where they need to go if
Mhm.
that wasn't your strength, which is something that I don't know if I really it's not that I didn't take it into consideration, but I was going into it with this mindset that like I could just take on all of it. And that's not realistic or fair. And so so as we went through the course and we kind of figured out what our kind of like niche market was, I became a lot more comfortable and um, a lot more secure in my position in crisis
Mm.
and mental health. So
So and I know you're supposed to be interviewing me, but or we're just having a discussion. So,
yeah.
I'm interested to know, like, what would you consider is your specialty within what you're doing?
So I went into it thinking that it would absolutely be, the drug world. I was like, that's totally what that makes sense to me, right? Something that I'm familiar with. Um, and it's actually not, it's suicide. So,
Mm.
yeah, it was interesting. And it wasn't actually, yeah, like I said, it wasn't something that I thought would be it. Um, it was something that was suggested by a few different people while I was taking the course, and not because I'm compassionate. It's actually the exact opposite. When people are asking for help with suicide, that's the first step to being on their mental health journey. And
Mhm.
so, obviously, when so we have to kind of take the word away from the action a little bit here, and just so it's not the action of the suicide, it's the intent of the suicide. So when people
Right.
ask for help, it's actually that the beginning of their journey. And so yeah, it wasn't something that I didn't think that that would be something that was kind of bestowed on me, but because of my super charming personality. No. It actually had a lot to do with my honesty,
Yeah.
and my lack of self, what's the right word? Uh, maybe mm, I'm a little rough around the edges, right? And a lot of time when people are in that position, they aren't necessarily looking for a solution.
Hmm.
So it is their beginning to their journey, but there's a reason why it's got it. Not that there's a reason why it's gotten to that place, but because I can remove myself so well. Yeah, that's kind of
Right.
how the conversation
Right.
went. Yeah, I'm not super emotional when it comes to that, or very maternal when it comes to that. So yeah, which was crazy because I actually it, after that happened, I didn't tell. This is the first time I've actually even talked about it. I didn't tell anybody that, but it seems to be kind of the thing that keeps ending up on my plate naturally, anyways. Um, we've somehow, and not that addiction services is by any means not necessary. We've slid kind of right out of it. Like, I don't know really what happened there. Like, it was kind of the initiative at the beginning, and we were really testimonies were really important. We wanted to make sure everybody had a place that they could talk about that kind of stuff, and obviously we welcome it. We love a good conversation, um, and I actually I've built a whole program that I haven't released yet on like addiction services. So I was like super excited to roll that out as like a hashtag lifestyle, Pine Care. Like, you have no idea. Yeah, it's crazy. Like, it's like a whole
Yeah.
book. And then just kind of by default, when we put out the hotline, like the crisis line, a lot of those people tend to be people who are dealing with the idea of suicide. So just kind of
Wow.
organically, the addiction services kind of slid away, and then that one kind of took front and center. So.
Those are the people that are drawn to you.
Mhm.
This is- yeah. Well, I mean, I'm super passionate about that too.
Mhm.
About mental health in general, but suicide has been front and center for me. As we put out the Kickin' Stones
Of
music
course,
video,
of
right?
course, of course, yeah.
And you know, all about my best friend that I grew up with, who
Yeah.
I wrote the song about him in 1993, and it was, yeah, there was mental health issues going on, but it was more about him losing a relationship and saying the words, what happened to her, and he'd said, I sent her down the road kicking stones, and so that created a song. So I wrote that about him. I was going through a lot of loss at that time. The Paul Stanley deal that I had with the band, the record deal started falling apart because the first grunge records were being released, and but then in 2016, he was found in a motel room with an empty 60-pounder of vodka beside him, right?
Right.
And so now, I mean, that inspired me really to put out that song and to
It's
speak about it, you
it's a
know.
great song. Man, is it a great song? Yeah, it's a great song, and I think they're not that I want everyone to have a reason to put out music like that. Obviously, it's heartbreaking, but when people do put out music like that, that not only because it has two reasons, right? Like, not only is it music and it's therapeutic for people, but obviously to like make sure that the message gets out there. I think it's heroic and it's important. And yeah, so not only is it a good song, but it is, the reason behind it is just it's so important. When I was telling you earlier about being interviewed over the weekend, um, it kind of drove home too, really, like, because again, like when the conversation happened originally about why Pinecase was important, I was like, gotta just the opiate epidemic is this massive thing. But I kind of forgot that going back, to before my kids were born, I was like serious about advocating for the men in the oil patch, that were coming home to their wives stepping outside of their relationships and not being able to see their kids, and paying all this money in spousal support and child support and this and that, and sleeping in airports and trying to keep their whole lives together, and then them making just too much money that they didn't get any resources, and the women kind of got everything. And obviously that's a big thing, big statement, but I don't know, it's not that I forgot, I shouldn't say I forgot, it's just that the opiate crisis really took a lot of space in a lot of people's minds. And now that I've been able to step away from that a little bit, it's been a lot easier to really focus on making sure that the backbone of Canada, the blue collar workers, really have a space. Like, I know that I upset some people the other day when I took down my Pride banner off Facebook. So stupid, right? Like a banner. Like, who cares? Honestly, it's Facebook. I mean, it's not that I don't care about Facebook. I love everybody. Thank you so much for all the like, subscribe, shop, follow, blah, 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 all that crap, right? But one person said one thing to me, and I was like, gut it. They were like, there's enough outreach for Pride. There's enough outreach for the queer community. They know where to go. We know where to go when we need that.
Sure.
And I was like, shit. Yeah, right. Sorry for failing that. Like,
Well,
because it's not that I wasn't thinking
you're not
about
going to make everybody happy.
all I was thinking about, but I was like,
Yeah. You're not going to make everybody happy. I mean,
no.
that's just the way that it is with special interest, right? So, I love that you're focused on your mission.
Yeah.
And your mission is, from what I can see, is around mental health and suicide awareness.
Yeah.
You and I are very much aligned on that right now, for sure. With what I'm doing, watching the fallout still from the pandemic. Mental health is a huge thing, and of course now in Canada, you can take your own life legally, so you get the right people involved. But
I'm sorry, I should laugh, but yeah. I mean, assisted
you know what I
suicide is
mean?
a real thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So I just think that every life is so special. Okay, like I believe. See, and I've told you this before. I think that my belief is that I am a spiritual being having a human experience, not a human being having a spiritual experience. Right? So I believe the soul lives forever. So regardless of whether I take my own life or not, I will continue on in some way. Who knows if you believe in in some of the Indian religions, that I come back again as somebody else or something else or whatever, right? And I have these different experiences, but it's really that belief has really taken the emotionality out of death for me a little bit. Do you know what I mean? I think that that's probably why you're so effective in what you do. You look at death in a very matter of fact way. Even that sign behind you, and that your thing is called, that your mission is called Pinecase, which is a which is, yeah, some people are buried in pine cases, right? So, I think that matter of fact, death is a choice. Suicide is a choice. But they stem from different things. Obviously, death comes from old age and all sorts of things, but premature death oftentimes, if it's not an accident or something like that, but if we decide to take our own life, it comes from unchecked mental health.
Yes.
Whether that's trauma, whether that's just what you're going through or a buildup of stuff, you know, it's always layers. Do you know what I mean? And that's why I think of why I brought up that, you know, the dyad and how a simple structured conversation to get stuff out and get those layers out can give us the opportunity to look at our life from this different perspective where we're sort of observing it from above and going like, well, yeah, I do have a lot of stuff inside of me that I need to talk about,
Mhm.
you know, and we can't all afford to, to hire a coach or a counselor or have the resources to get there, or maybe whatever it is. But getting into groups of people and having conversations, that's got a lot of value. And so I guess I'll bring it back to men's mental health again. Get together with other men that want to talk. Check it. I mean, just Google men's groups in your area, and you are going to come across a lot. Okay, and go test some of them out. If you were a man and you are struggling with your mental health, get to one of these men's groups, and at the very minimum, start a daily routine to open the door to your pharmacy. So important.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're absolutely correct there. Like, we need to, because it's such a massive umbrella, obviously, all of the mental health things, both diagnosed, symptom, undiagnosed, relative and relation, because there's all sorts of different things happening with mental health. Um, they all, one can bleed into the other, one can be caused by the other, and all sorts of things. But as if you can remove yourself from all of that wording for a second and just focus on a small routine or a small ritual or a small ceremonial thing, like
Or
Tim talked
discipline, yeah,
about.
however you want to look at it. You can
Mhm,
make it as sacred or just straightforward as you want. You know what I mean?
mhm,
But yeah, that's got value. And then going and talking with other men. You
yeah,
know, so many of the different coaches and leaders that I work with, lead these things, and they're powerful, and they're transformative. They're life changing.
yeah.
So, yeah, I just want to say that anybody who's watching this, watching this live with you, you know,
There's a few. I haven't posted them, but there's a few.
yeah, okay, but even after the fact, they're,
Oh,
they're
they're
wel-
around.
yeah,
I just
they're
haven't put them
welcome,
up on the comments. Sorry.
and you're welcome to send any men to me who I could maybe point in the right direction. I'm here to serve. That's
Mhm.
why I'm here. I love to play music. I rock and roll. That's that I love to do that. Oh, speaking, that's one thing I wanted to speak about yet before we go
Yeah.
is that in metal and hard rock and roll, how that is so good for anybody, especially if you love that kind of music, for anybody to go and rock out. I watch the most transformative, beautiful things happen in mosh pits. It's
Oh my
incredible.
God.
It's insane.
Speaking of
Like,
mosh pits, we
yeah,
would like, man, I feel like I got the dust shaken right off of me after a weekend like that. Like, you want to talk about bass therapy? Holy moly! The production team at Decimate Metal Fest, Prairie Fire Productions, those boys showed out, man. I don't even know where the heck they came from, but there was enough marshals there to blow your hair back straight. And the stage was wicked, and the lighting, the sound techs were on point, and man, was that deadly! Like, I
I saw the lives. I was impressed. I was impressed.
uh, I was like, heck yes. And not only that, but you had like the vendors were super awesome. And then I mean, there was I think 35 acts altogether. And so it was just, metal after metal after metal after metal after metal. But because they were so different,
Yeah.
like, you had a completely different experience. But yeah, get you some bass therapy, man. Because I mean, I left there floating. I was like, you couldn't tell. I mean, I couldn't tell that I had been up for like 2 straight days. I probably look that way now, but it doesn't feel like work when you're doing things like that. That's for sure. And yeah.
But going to metal shows, I think is
Yeah.
incredibly good for your mental health.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And from a frequency bath standpoint, right? Like we talked about that before. Like it's
Sure.
not just the camaraderie or you know, the music itself, but it's also actually like there is frequency therapy involved in there. Like you know, it's why we leave shows just vibrating. Orion came, I don't often say my son's name on here, but because DJ Lion performed there, and DJ Lion and Orion we're starting a podcast called Two Peas in a Podcast. Because they were there. Those boys were there the whole weekend. I mean, they're 10, right? 2 dudes, right? Just run around. And not only were they awesome, but it was such a cool experience to watch it. When I mean they were there at 9 o'clock in the morning, and we were there till 3 o'clock in the morning. Like those boys did not stop. There was something about that atmosphere and that much vibration and whatever. Like it was like rattled them into like beautiful manners and like creative minds. And you know, there was DJ Lion and Orion, and then and Gabe, who was walking around like a professional photographer with a media pass. They're all about the same age. And not only did they not get into trouble, but they actually created a business plan over the weekend.
Wow.
You know?
Wow.
Like people are like, oh, it's so loud and so noisy and so this, so that. Well, maybe, but I mean, there was like creative juices flowing and, you know, connection and artistry happening outside of just the bands. Like it was so cool to watch, be a part of.
Well, the metal community is some of the most beautiful family I've ever experienced.
Yeah.
I think the one show that sticks out for me was I went to the Heaven and Hell Festival. It was in Mexico a few years ago, 2017, I think it was. And it was on the NASCAR racetrack in Mexico City. And there was 120,000 people.
Okay.
I have never seen so much metal love in one place.
It
was incredible. Incredible. You know? And mosh pits, like just insane mosh pits. But if someone fell down, you know, they always got
picked them back up. What's rule number 1?
Yeah. It was incredible. Yeah.
That's awesome.
So, yeah.
Very cool. That was actually in our harm reduction video. I should I'll repost that. Pinecase did a harm reduction video for Decimate, and it was like, it was in there as rule number 1. If somebody falls, you pick them back up.
Yep. Always.
Very cool.
It was great talking with you.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Thank you so much for joining me this evening. Take care.
The more you try to keep me down and keep my head above the water, you can never hold me down. The more you try to block
Lion in the strength of 1,000 giant, please stay strong. Please stay strong. With the strength of 1,000 elephant and the strength of 1,000 tiger, we stay strong. We stay strong. We stay strong.
The further you take my rights away, I'ma run to it, refuse to hear my voice.